So I don't know if you know this, but I put a alarming amount of time into this thread I did over the weekend, and it was about AJ Brown and DJ Moore. And then I'm assuming the Tennessee Titans brass saw this thread and said, hey, you know what? DF Bean Counter is putting in way too much work on this thing. Let's wreck it. Let's go and trade for Julio Jones and wreck the entire thing. The premise is over. So now we have to go back into it with this new data, new Julio Jones trade. And what I should also tell you is I already did a video on Julio Jones too. I already did a video on AJ Brown. I did a video on both these guys, and now we got to do it all over again because of trades. I love trades. This is so fun. Anyways, so here's where we're at. Julio Jones, did he lose a step? No, he did not. Go back and watch the video from about 2 months ago. He's still very good. He's still Julio Jones. On a per play, on a per game, on a per snap basis, he was still top of the league in terms of efficiency and like PFF grade, and like he was really good at football in 2020. He just didn't play that much. He got hurt. It happens. This is football. Players get hurt. When we look at it though, when we break it down by his target share in his healthy games. So he had 2 games where he played. He only had 23% of the snaps and 41% of the snaps. So I just eliminated those games because he played less than half the snaps. Every other game though, he averaged 23% target share across those games. He was still very much a big part of the offense. He also had an 11% game in which he got injured, but he played 80% of the game, so I don't really know what that was about, why he got so few targets that game. It doesn't really matter. The point is he had 23% target share. That's what we're basing all of this on. He has been a 25% plus target share player basically since he entered the NFL. Julio Jones is an alpha. I don't think anyone is debating that. The problem is now we have alpha Julio Jones. We have alpha AJ Brown. AJ Brown, also incredible player. There was never a question of talent when it came to AJ Brown. I was fading AJ Brown strictly based on his situation. The Titans refuse to pass the ball. If you saw the thread over the weekend, you will probably recall that in early down pass frequency and neutral script, Tennessee Titans ranked dead last by a large margin. It's not good. They do not want to pass the ball. And I can't really blame them because Derrick Henry is really good at football. And then we look at like their pass frequency over expectation. Theirs is actually a pass frequency under expectation because they were 7 percentage points below average based on the down and distance and the play call that they chose, whether it was a pass or run. The Tennessee Titans do not want to pass the ball. They let Corey Davis walk, they let Jonnu Smith walk, and they did nothing until now. Now they traded for Julio Jones. It wasn't a crazy price. They traded a second-round pick. That's fine. It's like Mohamed Sanu pricing. It's not that bad. So what does this all mean for the Titans? We have alpha AJ Brown. We have alpha Julio Jones. They're both really good at football. And the other thing that we should talk about really quick, wide receivers do not age gracefully. They are very, very good. They're very, very good. They're very, very good. And then they're terrible and out of the league. That's how it works. It's not like they go from wide receiver 1 and then, okay, they're 30. Now they're going to be a wide receiver 2. Okay, they're 32. Yeah, they're probably going to be a wide receiver 3 and so on and so forth. That's not how it works. Wide receivers typically go, I'm a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 1. I am completely done and now I'm out of the league. That's how it works. It is a cliff. It is not a gradual decline. It is absolutely a cliff. Julio Jones could hit a cliff this year. This could be his cliff year. We don't know yet. I don't think it was. Last year, he was still very, very good. Probably going to be very, very good again. Anyways, what needs to happen for this to work out? And AJ Brown and or Julio Jones. That's the other thing. I don't know which guy is actually going to be the alpha. I'm assuming they're going to split the targets. I'm assuming they're both going to have a 25% target share. That is roughly what Julio Jones has been for his entire life. That is what AJ Brown was last year with Corey Davis in tow. He had a 25.8%. So I think 25% is a safe bet for both of them. So what needs to happen to get them into elite range? The way that we were getting AJ Brown into elite range, if we were trying to, was we were saying, the Titans are going to pass a lot more. Or, AJ Brown's going to get all of the targets. He's going to get a 30% target share, maybe even more. Or both. And unfortunately, that's pretty unlikely. So now that they've indicated to us that they want to have Julio Jones, they want to pass the ball, they have Julio Jones, we can look at Corey Davis last year. Corey Davis had a 23.1% target share. Corey Davis is one of the most efficient wide receivers in football. That's why we like Corey Davis this year going to the New York Jets. We like Corey Davis because he was commanding a 23.1% target share alongside AJ Brown. Corey Davis was good at football in 2020. Julio Jones will be good at football in 2021. I don't think there's a huge increase to go from Corey Davis to Julio Jones. So I don't think that they're going to just line up and pass the ball on repeat now that they have Julio Jones. I think they're just probably slotting him in for a similar role to what they had Corey Davis in. So anyways, what are we looking at for projections? How do we get them there? What's got to happen? So if we are going to assume that they're both going to have a 25% target share, and we assume that their pass attempts go up. If you recall, the pass attempts for the Tennessee Titans in the last 3 years have been scary low. Not just low, scary low. 27.3 in 2018, 26.9 in 2019, 30.1 in 2020. Those are all bottom 3 numbers. The Tennessee Titans do not pass the ball. So now that we have Julio Jones, if we are projecting an increase, how much of an increase are we projecting? I personally am not projecting a lot because I think Corey Davis is already good. I think that's why they passed 30 times last year, was because Corey Davis was good at football. Julio Jones enters the fray. I would suggest going no more than 2 extra attempts per game. You might want to go more. How far do we need to go to get these players into a range where they can be wide receiver ones automatically? I would suggest that we probably need to get into 150 target range. They were at 30 last year. We bump it to 32. We give them both a 25% target share. That's 8 targets per game. By the way, AJ Brown's targets per game last year, 7.6. So this doesn't really change a whole lot. Anyways, 8 targets per game. That gets him to 136 targets in a 17-game season. That ain't going to cut it. These are not wide receiver one numbers. Or not wide receiver one overall numbers. These are back-end wide receiver one numbers with insane efficiency. Keep in mind, A.J. Brown had 7.6 targets last year. He scored, 11 touchdowns in 14 games or thereabouts? There is very, very little hope that A.J. Brown can, in my opinion, can keep up that kind of touchdown scoring. Again, if you go back and look at his college data, he was not a touchdown scorer. He was fine. If you go back and look at A.J. Brown's touchdowns in college, he had 19 touchdowns on 189 receptions. That's a rate of 10%. He has exceeded that by 50% in his 2 years in the NFL. It's hard to believe that A.J. Brown suddenly got good at scoring touchdowns once he got to the NFL. He wasn't bad at scoring touchdowns in college. 10% is good. It's just not great. And 15% is like unheard of good for like a sustained period of time, which he's done it for 2 years. So I'm suspecting that that's coming down. So if A.J. Brown can only be a 17 points per game wide receiver with a 15% touchdown rate, where he had 11 touchdowns in 14 games, not a lot of wide receivers are scoring in the 12, 13, 14 touchdowns a season range. A.J. Brown probably not going to do it on a routine basis. That means this amount of volume, this 8 targets per game, 136 targets, is not going to cut it. If you are looking for wide receiver one overall production, it's probably not even going to cut it if you're looking for back end wide receiver one production. He is probably most likely at this point going to be a very, very fringe wide receiver 1-2. I would not be shocked in any way at all if he has a little bit of a down touchdown season and ends up in the early wide receiver 2 range. And that's not what you're paying for in Dynasty, so stop paying for it in Dynasty, and it's certainly not what you're paying for in Redraft. A.J. Brown is overvalued in all formats. I have been on Twitter and I have seen people posting that nothing has changed for A.J. Brown. He's still going to eat. He is still going to eat. He's going to get the same target share he's always had. The problem is the efficiency probably won't be there to the same level that it has been in the past. So if we want to get him into a range where we feel comfortable, where we feel okay with him as a bona fide wide receiver 1 overall candidate, we have to project the Tennessee Titans to increase their pass attempts by 8 to 10 attempts per game from their 3-year high of last year. This is an unheard of ask. This is a huge ask. It happens. Don't get me wrong. It happens. Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills last year happened. It's possible. It's just not probable. If he gets into the 38 to 40 pass attempts per game, we're talking about 160 to 170 targets per season for A.J. Brown. At that point, I feel very comfortable with A.J. Brown being the wide receiver 1 overall and certainly a top 5 wide receiver. He's in that range if we get there. I'm just not ready to bet on the Julio Jones edition changing the offense all that much more than the already incredibly efficient Corey Davis did last year. All I'm trying to say is it's probably not changing anything. It certainly isn't improving his ceiling. Basically, we're looking at a net gain of 0. I'm projecting now that they're going to pass 32 attempts per game. That's going to be 136 targets. That's exactly what I was projecting for A.J. Brown for prior to this move, because his target share went from really, really big back to normal, and the pass attempts went from really, really low up to highest in the past 4 years. AJ Brown, Julio Jones, I don't know which one's going to score more. If you're in a redraft league, I would suggest buying whichever one's cheaper, which is probably going to be Julio Jones. If you're in Dynasty, you still need to be moving AJ Brown because this situation doesn't spell top-end elite production. It spells really, really good player. Pardon me. Really, really good fantasy player. He's an incredible player. From a skill talent perspective, he's easily in the conversation for Dynasty wide receiver 1 overall as one of the best one of the best wide receivers in football. He's only 24 years old. So he should be in the conversation for Dynasty wide receiver 1. The problem is he plays on one of the 3 teams that I would not have their wide receiver 1 ranked anywhere near my top 5 wide receivers because they just don't have the ceiling that I want. That's all I have to say about this. Thanks for ruining my entire thread, Tennessee Titans.